WFSB. This is a special edition of Face the State with Dennis House. Coronavirus in Connecticut.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dennis House. Welcome to this special live Thursday night edition of Face the State. We'll be joined by Governor Ned Lamont every Thursday at this time for the next several weeks to talk about coronavirus. And tonight he is joining us remotely from the executive residence as we practice safe social distancing. And welcome, Governor Lamont.
Hi, Dennis. Good evening.
And I should point out that your new studio has been built by our good friends at ESPN, who are not covering too many sports these days, so they have some extra time to help you out with your new studio. We appreciate that. I want to ask you, first of all, when you see these videos that we just showed of a patient being released from the hospital, what goes through your mind?
Somebody asked me, the house was surrounded by protesters a couple of days ago, beeping their horn, Liberate Connecticut. And they said, what would you like to tell the protesters who think we're not getting back to work soon enough? I said, they should just walk through an ICU room sometime. And he talked to the doctors on the front lines, what they're seeing people are going through, if they're in critical care. We're making progress on this thing, Dennis. I mean, we're flattening the curve. Fewer people hospitalized today than the day before. But I just got to make sure people stay serious, and then we'll get out of this for real.
I know the big headline today was the May 20th date may not be a date that the state opens up on a wide basis, but we'll get to that a little bit later in the broadcast. I want to get to some viewer questions, and so many people are asking about masks. And this person, John, wrote, I had an experience where an eating establishment is not enforcing those rules on their employees. Businesses need to enforce the mask glove rules for their employees, and we all need to do our part in preventing the virus from spreading. What should merchants do or customers do is when they walk in and they don't see these rules being followed?
Help us out. Go tell the person who runs that store you're not going to go back to that store if people don't wear the mask. They understand that that's what the executive order says. And by the same token, a lot of people are going into stores, crowded stores in some cases, and the customers aren't wearing a mask. And we're asking them to wear a mask at that grocery store as well. A lot of this is going to be self-enforced, Dennis, or enforced by neighbors. If you really feel that they're not taking this seriously, give us a call, give the authorities a call. A policeman will stop by and give people a reminder, you got to take this seriously because it's the law.
Deborah Beebe also wrote, she went to her supermarket, hardly any patrons had masks on, and I questioned it. I was told an executive order is not a law and cannot be enforced. So how is an executive order different from a law?
Executive order is it is a law from our point of view. Enforcement of it is up to the local mayors, up to the local municipality. But when we say wear a mask, we mean wear a mask. But Frank, there is some judgment, Dennis. I mean, when you're outside by yourself or you're walking 5-6 feet away from your spouse, you don't necessarily have to wear a mask there if you're not in a congested area. So I'm not being dictatorial about these rules, but when you're in a store, wear a mask.
Katie Pohl from West Hartford writes, some people either can't afford masks or in some cases they can't buy them because they're all sold out or being reserved for healthcare organizations. Asking our most vulnerable populations to cut up shirts or socks when that might be one of the few clothing options they have adds to that unfairness. Then you state that they can be issued a summons, which they likely won't be able to afford either. How will you address the impact that this is having, the mask requirement, on some of these poorer communities?
Well, I don't think anybody's been issued a summons that I know of at this point. You must have a scarf or something, a cloth that you can put over your face. In the meantime, we're securing a lot of masks right now, and we're making those available to small businesses that may not have access to that. And we'll be able to roll that out. In the meantime, you just have to be creative in terms of a scarf or a bandana or something like that.
Yeah, I used a turtleneck sweater the other day. I just pulled it up over my face. This next question comes to us from Jim Navarro. What is the governor doing about workplaces that are not following social distancing? And it's a two-part question. Does the stay-at-home executive order mean you don't want people taking a drive, going to a park or for a walk, or should they really stay on their own property?
No, we've kept our parks open. Go to a park, take a nice walk, walk with your kid. And I'm not denying people those little luxuries in life. It keeps you sane, doesn't it? What we're all trying to do is say, wherever you can stay at home, stay at home. And if that store is not following the protocols that we say, either you tell the proprietor or we will. This is the rules.
Governor, we're going to take a quick time out. A little later in the program, your unemployment questions will be answered from our viewers. And next, nursing homes, schools, and coronavirus survivors. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a special edition of Face the State. We're joined once again from the executive residence by the chief executive of our state, Governor Ned Lamont. And Governor, good to see you back here. Our next question is from Gail, who lives in Durham. Her mother died on Sunday in a nursing home. And here's a shortened version of what she sent us. It was a pretty long email. Don't family members who are in a nursing home have the right to know what is going on with their loved one? My mother died Sunday of COVID virus. Did I know she had it? No. Was she tested? I don't know. Was she treated? I don't know. I received a phone call Saturday night that my mother had been unresponsive for 2 days. I called the next morning and was told she was weak. When I called back at 3 o'clock, the head nurse got on the phone and told me that my mother had passed away a few minutes ago. The death certificate, though, said COVID virus. Why wasn't I notified? I followed the rules for over a month of no visiting. I also could not see my mother at the funeral home. My goodbye to my mother was to a coffin at the cemetery.
That's outrageous. That's not right. We're going to find out about that. You have an obligation, you as the nursing home operator, to keep the loved ones informed every step of the way. We're trying to set up FaceTimes and other ways you'd be able to communicate. You didn't have that chance. You never had a chance to say goodbye to your mother. That's absolutely wrong. We're sending inspectors out to each of these nursing homes right now. We've already inspected well over half of them. We're finding out about stories like that. We're finding out about infection rates. We're finding out about PPE, and we're going to hold people accountable. But I'm so sorry for your loss, and I can't stand the way that happened, and it's not going to happen again.
Well, we'll get that name of the nursing home for your office, Governor. Changing topics a bit to testing, Adam Stern in Cheshire has a suggestion. With the Red Cross desperate for blood donations, is there a way to provide the antibody test to those willing to donate? This is a win-win for everyone. What do you think?
Well, I can tell you we're doing a lot of the antibody testing at Hartford Hospital and other hospitals here in the area. They're doing the plasma test so that those that come out and they have the antibodies in their blood, we're getting those to folks who are infected. Finding some remedies are making a difference there. So I think it's a pretty smart idea.
A quick question about education from Richard in Winstead. Do you think schools should remain closed for the rest of the year for the children's safety?
Richard, we haven't made that determination yet, at least for the rest of this school year. Miguel Cordona, our amazing commissioner of education, is going to give some guidance, I think, within a couple of weeks. I can tell you that there's still a pretty high infection rate around the state, at least in many regions of the state. I can tell you that Rhode Island and Massachusetts and New Hampshire have all closed schools through the rest of this year. But I can also tell you that the overwhelming majority of our kids are learning online, learning by telephone. We're delivering hundreds of thousands of textbooks to kids who don't have access to online. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure the kids keep learning, but just in a different way.
Governor, I'm going to take a break from viewer questions. I want to ask you one that I've been wondering about this week, and that is that there have been some reports out there, I think Bloomberg reported it and the Connecticut Post, that the number of short-term rentals in southwestern Connecticut has gone way up. I think they doubled in the town of Greenwich, and many people are just coming here for the summer, and they're from New York. What do you think about that?
Well, we have outlawed short-term rentals at least a month or less. We have said hotels are reserved for first responders, and frankly, we have homeless in some of these places. Because what we don't want to have happen is people coming in from out of state just to, rusticate here as the pandemic resides. Not that we're not friendly people, but we're trying to stay at home in New York as well as in Connecticut, so we don't have a lot of back and forth. All that does is spread the virus around.
Stephen Willimantic has some questions about your executive orders and the way they may be changing the way business is done. We have time for one of them right now. Under the minimum budgetary requirement, an education budget cannot be less than the previous year's budget. Thus, because of your executive order, an education budget may be artificially inflated this year due to the fact that it will not require voter approval. And then, because of the MBR, the artificially inflated budget becomes the minimum starting point for next year's budget. I'll tell you, some of our viewers Governor, do quite a bit of research. Is there anything you intend to do to prevent this, or would be consider suspending the MBR for next year?
Here's what I intend to do to get you over to the Office of Policy and Management. You're thinking very thoughtfully about this. That's obviously something that's going to have to change. I'll bring that up with Melissa McCaw and see if we have to do that by executive order. You should be in state government. I like the way you're thinking.
Perhaps he will run. Governor, we'll be back with you in just 2 minutes. We're talking about the impact of the shutdown on businesses, unemployment questions, and essential employees. Should they be eligible for extra help for being on the front lines? We'll be right back.